Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Colorado Rockies. My name is Alex Berry, also known as AZ Axel, and this screen right here is the best screen any OOTP player can see if it's their team on this page. Ladies and gentlemen, your Colorado Rockies in the 2028 season won the World Series, and we beat everybody. It was an interesting season, ups and downs. We didn't finish well, but we absolutely destroyed in the playoffs. It was not even a competition. We ran through the best the National League could offer us. We only lost one game. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. We've made some moves. We have some stuff to talk about. We also have some stuff to be previewing for the upcoming off season. So if you guys are ready, let's jump into some reviews, shall we? All right, we'll begin our season review here at the All-Star break. We were just about up to that in our last episode. We had just finished the first-year player draft and beginning our signing periods for all of them. For the All-Star game, I thought we would have much more representation in both the All-Star game and the Prospects game. We, at the end of the day, only had, I believe, three representatives in the All-Star game. That was, of course, Bobby Witt Jr., Riley Green, who was actually injured at the time, and, of course, our eventual what is going to be our rookie of the year, Nelson Rada. So unfortunately, we only had three people in the All-Star game. It really wasn't that big of a thing for us. The prospects, we only ended up having Larry Kunkel and Quentin Young in the prospects game. So even that was a little bit of a lack of representation from our organization. I don't know why we didn't have more of our starting pitchers involved, but I guess we have to have some diversity with the team. So we only ended up having two prospects involved, but still happy to see Larry Kunkel being able to showcase his talent on the big league stage there. We have been able to see some more people come through of our system as we've been, of course, going through the entire season. We've been getting some more prospects, nothing major at this point. I think the best we had was like a two-star prospect. They're not that good. So unfortunately, we're not getting much in terms of international scouting discoveries. But then again, our scout is not exactly designed for that, so anything he gives us is better than nothing at this point. We did end up having Micah Matthews be named the MVP of the rookie system. He had a very good season. I think I brought him up in our last video, basically, but he is starting to get into an interesting situation where he's performing well at multiple levels. He actually got all the way up to AAA this year. Um, he's our ninth round pickup from 2025, and he's starting to kind of showcase some of his abilities, and that's a good sign for us. We had an interesting season. A lot of stuff happened over the course of the regular season. We got up to the trade deadline. We were doing okay. I want to say by the trade deadline, we were definitely in second place. The Padres had pretty much just had a good run of about a 20 game stretch where they were just twice as good as we were. We weren't quite hitting on all the cylinders we wanted to be able to hit. It kind of felt similar to how the first half of the regular season went, where there were little moments where we dominated, absolutely dominated the league. I think our best winning streak was like a 9-game winning streak. We were very, very good. In fact, I think if I go to our team stats, yeah. So in July we were 16-9, but then somehow we managed to go 13-14 and 12-14 to basically finish out the regular season. So we had two really good months where we went combined, what was it, be 33-20? And then the rest of the regular season was just kind of coasting. So it was not a good regular season. We still managed to come in as the number 2 wild card seed, right below the Milwaukee Brewers, who won 96 games, and the Padres, of course, who had won 94 games in the National League West. We didn't do anything at the trade deadline. We didn't have money. We didn't have anything to really offer. So unless someone came to us of a smoking deal, we weren't making any moves. We kept getting really good, just player of the month and player of the week rewards. Gray was having a really good season at that point. He ended up sticking around for the entire year. I don't think he actually got injured once at all this year. Maybe just the beginning of the season. He had 26 starts. He had a 4.1 WAR season. It was really good for Sonny Gray. Rada continued to perform excellently. This has probably been our biggest person for the season. He even lost. He was even lost at the last second, right before playoffs began. We lost Rada for the entire playoffs. He still ended up having a 41 stolen base, 18 home run, 48 double, 309 batting average season, a 6.1 WAR season for a rookie. This is a 23-year-old rookie. Trust me, we just sent him a contract extension offer for about 7 years. So if he approves, we'll get him for, I think, just over $20 million at the end of that contract. So we'll get him out of arbitration. And I think it's like 4 or 5 years of his free agency period. We will have signed him for all of that. And if he can continue to do 5 or 6 WAR a season, this is borderline MVP caliber type stuff. And this is great for a right fielder. I think he might win Rookie of the Year, and I think he has a potential to win right fielder Gold Glove of the Year. So that would be amazing to see him do all of that. We also had, again, just some more stuff happen across the league as we were able to continue moving forward. Just some good performances from certain players. We're still waiting to see if any of our prospects really start to kind of improve and get better and better. But we still continue to see really good results from Kunkel. Kunkel now officially is continuing to improve. He's now 2.5 stars in our AAA system. The stamina still is a little bit of a problem. We're hoping to be able to work on that as well as maybe work on his control of player development over the course of the offseason. He still ended up having a fairly decent year in AAA where he had 19 starts, had a 4.06 ERA, and a 3.0 WAR. So he is knocking on the door, and it's going to be important because we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'll spare you guys the suspense. Shane Bieber opted out of his contract, and I was a little bit concerned about that, but I also kind of wanted him to. So we'll touch base on that in a little bit here. Nolan Arenado officially retired in the middle of the regular season. I don't know why, but the Cubbies just didn't want to keep him going. He was having a really bad season, so he went ahead and just retired, and promptly the organization decided to retire his number. Number 28 is now retired by the Colorado Rockies, so we now officially have, I think it's 4 retired numbers. Of course, Jackie Robinson, and now we officially have Todd Helton, Larry Walker, and Nolan Arenado all retired in the system. So I wish Nolan had been able to play his entire career in Colorado. I mean, you look at just the difference between him and his years in St. Louis, and just the fact that he had so much of that WAR in the what was it? Basically, in the 6, 7, 8-ish years he was with the Colorado Rockies. I just kind of wish that if I could go back and play through history again and just be like, no, you stay with the Rockies. Just we'll make it work better. Unfortunately, just in a situation where just sad to see such a good quality player just kind of fall apart in OOTP, and hopefully he doesn't in real life. Otherwise, we still had, of course, some really good results across the rest of our organization. Jackson Baker ended up getting, I believe, reliever of the year in our single A system. We got another manager of the year, this time Samuel Deduno. I think this is his second or third. Yeah, his third manager of the year award for Deduno. He has been phenomenal. He is requesting a promotion, so the entire Fresno Grizzlies organization, all of their staff is like asking to get promoted. I might have to look at just giving them all a position up either to single A plus or maybe double A. We'll see. They've been doing really, really well though. Robert Callas was actually given Player of the Year MVP award basically for the Cal system. This is again Fresno. He had a very good season in Fresno. He ended up batting only 234 in the batting average, but that's a 136 OPS plus and a 5.4 WAR in 99 games in Fresno. He had 23 home runs. He is still a potential prospect. If he can get a little bit more on some of his ratings, he could still be an interesting replacement for Brenton Doyle, and we'll be keeping an eye on Callas. He's only 22 years of age. He's going to be in potentially A plus next year. We'll see how he does. He ended the season in Double A, did not do very well there, unfortunately. But if we look at like Eastern League ratings, he's potentially, I don't know. We'll see. He's rough. He has to have some more development to really be able to make himself an interesting prospect for us. But the way that Doyle is continuing to develop in terms of his bat is just not looking so good. Alberto Pacheco ended up winning reliever of the year for, I believe this was Double A at this point. He's now officially in, I believe, Triple A. No, still in Double A at this point at this stage in the game. And right around that time, we secured the wild card spot, which allowed us to be able to at least know that we were going to be into the playoffs. It took a bit of work to get to there, but we ended up getting it eventually. and we were able to at least get in and give ourselves an opportunity to play in the playoffs. We still are having some major issues with some of our prospects and just developing stuff. We'll talk about that in a little bit of time, but and there's also stuff like just Brenton Doyle just continues to just fall apart in terms of his just ratings and everything. I mean, he had a 1.7 WAR season, but he just cannot bat. He can't hit anything anymore. And we're lucky to get 17 homers and 17 doubles. He's striking out a lot. He's not really walking. He's stealing it as much as he can. He's trying to be productive. He's still a 1.7 WAR player, but there's a pretty high chance this is going to be the one contract that I am not going to be happy that I signed, even for $9 million. It's just not going to be worth it. I may be looking to get rid of Doyle this off season if we can. He's still cheap enough that I don't mind keeping on to him, and just seeing if he can continue to produce a positive WAR season. But the minute that he starts batting below, like 200, it's just like, okay, how much can you really get away with before it's just too much? Otherwise, Nelson Rada continued to be a great asset for us in the major league team at this point. We moved on to the division series. We took down Milwaukee. I'll go ahead and give you guys a good idea of what our playoffs looked like at that point. We were able to get into playoffs. We got into the wild card game. We lost our first game to Milwaukee. That was against Nam. And we were like, oh boy, here we go. This could get real bad real fast. We lost 2-1. It was a comeback victory for the Milwaukee Brewers in the 8th and ninth innings. Basically, Will Vest just was put in a little bit too early, tried to stick it out, and just could not give us the save. And something clicked after that game. Your Colorado Rockies would go on to win every single playoff game after that loss. After that, we basically reverse swept the Milwaukee Brewers 9-3, 5-3. We walked into Cincinnati, took the first two games there, 4-3, 3-2, then came home and won the final game 3-2. We awaited the next team, which would end up being the San Diego Padres. We took them in 4 straight, destroyed them in game 3, and then had to wait almost a week to face off against the Chicago White Sox, of all teams, who came from the American League. It was not the Baltimore Orioles, which is what I was expecting it to be. It was the Chicago White Sox. And we destroyed them in 4 games flat. 3-0, 6-1, 9-5, and 10-1. With the final game having a almost complete game shutout by our number 5 pitcher, Kyle Wright. That's the kind of playoffs we had, ladies and gentlemen. We could literally do no wrong after the first loss. We could do no wrong. Everybody was on fire. Everybody was doing really well. Tovar got MVP of the series for the World Series. Nelson Rada got MVP for the League Championship Series. He unfortunately got injured right before the World Series, and we unfortunately had to go without him for the World Series, I believe. Yeah, he got, I think, 1 game in the World Series, 2, my apologies, before he fell out with an injury. But again, we were already up 2-0. It wasn't going to be a problem. Will Vest actually got the MVP, series MVP for the division series. He actually ended up, I believe, giving us 2 saves, 2 2-inning saves in that one against a very tough Cincinnati Reds ball club. They were the best team in baseball at that stage. The Cincinnati Reds, winners of 103 ball games. So we took down the 103 winning Reds. We took down the 96 game winning Milwaukee Brewers. We took down the 94 game winning San Diego Padres. We took down everybody that the National League could throw at us. It was not even close. So, your Colorado Rockies are winners of the 2028 World Series, and it was a glorious, glorious World Series finish. Condon ended up having a 3-homer game against San Diego Padres in one of those playoff series. We swept the White Sox in the final series of the World Series. It was absolutely fantastic. It was perfect. It was perfect. I am so happy that it worked out the way that it did. At the same time, we've already started doing our international amateur free agency scouting. We've already got our list of people that we're interested in. We've actually cut back on some of the higher tiered people. We're not going after some of the more illustrious players, such as Jesus Cesares? Cesar, Cazares. Um, we're not going after him. We're not going to go after Jesus Alvarado. Some of these people who are just a little bit too good, and we're probably not going to be able to go after them. We thought about going after Ivan Rodriguez here, an outfielder nicknamed Old Nick, not the catcher, Pudge. This would be a very good outfield prospect, but unfortunately, his adaptability, work ethic, and intelligence are all low. It is not a good setup for us, and we just didn't feel comfortable trying to go for him while everyone else is probably also going for him, and he's expected to be asking for at least $3 million. So we've been instead going after a bunch of other people. We're very interested in the likes of, if I can find them again here now. Victor Flores is one of them. We like his bat profile. We don't like his defense, but we think the bat profile and the really good personality class is a good fit for us. We really liked, I think it was David Hernandez. No, David Ramirez, my apologies. 4-pitch starting pitcher. He could be someone who sneaks in as a really good 4-star pitcher who could develop into 4.5 stars, maybe 5 stars if the stuff goes up a bit higher. This is somebody that you can kind of get away with a lower quality or lower cost signing potentially. League interest is low on him right now. Our scouting accuracy is high. Again, we're just 2 scoutings in, but our job is to get the relationship strong, hopefully have the league interest be low, and be able to snag some of these kids out from other people's informations. We also were very interested in Carlos Salgado. This is another person that we're interested in, but again, the league is also liking him as well. Good defense profile. Can also technically play, I guess, a little bit of the outfield, but would qualify as a shortstop prospect with some pretty good bat there as well. We also are looking into a catcher potentially, Alejandro Ariola. We'll see how he develops over time as well. We like the defense profile, and the bat is nice and decent enough at this point. He would be a lower costing signing. Probably could get him for maybe $1.5 million. And then, of course, there is Tony here. And this would be an interesting one as well. He's only $1 million to be able to potentially get. Might be able to get him for like 750,000. We'll have to see about that. So we're looking into stuff. We'll keep you guys posted on what we're able to find for all of those. But that's been happening in the background as we move into the end of the season, the beginning of the off season. So here's what's happened to begin the off season, and this is where we're going to end our video actually after a quick little team review. Shane Bieber opts out of the remainder of his contract, which again, if you remember what his contract was, he basically was given, what was it again? He was going to have 25 million, I believe, for 3 more years was the idea. His contract is now officially done. He will become a free agent at the end of the year if we do not offer him a new contract. He is asking for 29 down to $28 million a year. So we are not going to be signing Shane Bieber back. That's just going to be the answer. Our owner actually had a goal for us to extend Bieber. We are not going to extend Bieber. Because we have Kunkel almost into the system, because we have Fiend almost into the system, I do not need an aging Bieber who's wrecked at the age of 33, trying to come back into our system with only 39 stamina. It's just not a good call. This is the point in time where I'm going to look at it and go, okay, I could sign him. I could try to ask for 25 million again, and he might even be willing to accept that. And yes, he helped us so much in the playoffs. He was very good in the playoffs. He was good in the regular season, a 4.8 WAR season for 155 innings. Probably could have gotten upwards of 180 if he had had a full season. Only did 27 starts. But because of that injury proneness, because of the fact that I just don't know how he's going to start doing in his development cycle at this point, he's been kind of starting to tick down a little bit, although he did do a little bit of a resurgency here at the end of the season. So he's brought it back, but there's just this sense of like, okay, I don't think he's ever going to be as good with his stuff. I think the movement could continue to drop back down. I think the control could continue to drop down. And at that point, he's just going to be an overpaid, aging veteran who just holds us back from being able to have someone else pitch. So regretfully, we're going to let Shane Bieber walk. We're going to let him walk. Our fan loyalty increased. We now officially are poor on our fan loyalty instead of abysmal, basically. I don't understand how it's just one tick up when we win the World Series after having back-to-back playoff performances, but Okay, sure, OOTP. I guess we'll do this the slow and steady way. We are expected to have about $18.5 million available for the season. However, we don't have any money at all for extensions. That being said, that is because I've already offered two extensions. We have offered Justin Martinez an extension, and I know he's down to 3 stars, but I really think that if he has a full season back here in Colorado, he could give Will Vest just a little bit of a breathing room. And we're offering him less than I think it's like a $7 million average contract for 4 years. So he's still fairly young at the age of 27. This would get him all the way up through 31. It would get him through, I believe, all the rest of his, well, it's into his free agency period now at this point, and it would just be a good signing for us to shore up our bullpen with a second arm that's really good. We can continue to develop our other pitchers, get them up into the big leagues, and just be able to see them work and give ourselves some time. Again, we also did the extension to Rada. We've given him an offer for 8 years, $133 million for those 8 years. But this would get him all the way through age 31, technically, I believe. And just the season he had, it looks very reminiscent of kind of the way we're handling Riley Green to an extent, where we really want to have them here long term, all the way until they're, basically ready to kind of retire or, in Rada's case, move on to hopefully a better team where he will, be a veteran presence there instead. Unless he wants to take a larger, cut and finish his career in Colorado, we'll see about that as well. Otherwise, our owner did give us a new budget. We now have $216 million. This should give us a player payroll or a team payroll of about $130 million for our players. We're sitting at about 133, and I think we're expected to be closer to 133.6, and that's going to be before a bunch of our arbitration players pop out of the system. So I guess that's a good time to go ahead and jump over to our arbitration. We are only offering arbitration to Chase Hampton. Everybody else is going to be walking. We're offering a multi-year deal to Justin Martinez instead of offering him arbitration because he wanted 7 million. We're going to be offering him basically that amount for the next 4 years. No arbitration increases for him outside of the first year here, basically. We are going to be letting Grayson Rodriguez walk. He actually didn't even pitch for us. We signed him literally right before playoffs began. He never pitched for us. He was now officially way too expensive, but it was still a good chance. He was a waivers claim, so there was nothing lost in getting him. Um, Even with his contract being added to our team for like a couple weeks, basically. But we thought maybe he'd be able to sign. Maybe we can get him for a really cheap contract. But no, he has arbitration, so he still wants like 7 or 8 million. And I just don't really feel like he'd be worth that. He can go test out free agency, and maybe we can think about signing him for like 1 million or 2 down the road. Otherwise, we are also going to be letting Ken Waldachuk walk, as well as Nick Fortes, Jacob Amaya, and Tyler Freeman. Those were all of our backup hitters, basically. Shane Bieber, of course, is going to be walking. Sonny Gray is at the end of his contract. He will be walking as well. He had a 4.1 WAR season. He ended up pitching 26 games, had a 11-5 record, a 3.44 ERA. It was a good season for Sonny Gray. Good bounce back season for 38 years of age, and basically having only done 16 starts the previous 2 seasons. So this was a solid performance for a 38-year-old starting pitcher. Sonny Gray and Shane Bieber will both be hitting free agency, and I just we just can't afford him, okay? He's asking for $22 million to continue on with the Colorado Rockies. I know he's liked it here. I know him and Bieber have both been great assets, but he's wrecked, and there's just nothing I can do about that. So unfortunately, both of them will be walking. Ketel Marte also will be walking. I thought he would have been doing way better for the Colorado Rockies in Coors Field, but he just was abysmal. He did good for like the first week after getting traded for, and then just fell apart. So Ketel Marte is going to hit free agency. We are not going to extend him an offer because he wanted, I think it was like 25 million. Yeah, 25 million for Ketel Marte, and that's just not going to happen for a 35-year-old at this point. Kyle Wright would be the last person that we are going to let walk. He had a very good season. Again, this was our person who won Game 4 of the World Series. He came in and did a really good job after playing in AAA for most of the regular season. But at this point, I have more interesting prospects that can be better than this, and I really don't want to give him $12.6 million just to be a number 5 starting pitcher. So the only person we're going to be extending is Chase Hampton. He ended up having a 1.3 WAR season. He actually did reliably. I just feel like as if, when even though he's fragile, 2.4 million is perfectly adequate for a number 4 starting pitcher. Dollander will be back. We still have Giolito, I believe. We should be able to still have most of our starting rotation in place at this point. Um, it should be pretty much the same thing, except for the fact that we're gonna be losing Bieber, Gray, Rodriguez, and Wright. But it's gonna be the same, except for the fact that basically all of our rotation is gonna be different next year. But we are expecting Larry Kunkel to be actually in the big leagues next season, playing for us. If he doesn't do well in spring training, maybe he has half a season or another full season AAA, but he is just continuing to be really, really good. Fiend is unfortunately just, I don't know. I still feel like he's better than 3 stars in terms of his prospect ability. If he hits some of these, if he hits all of these, I think he's a 3.5 star at least. I think it's just the stamina that's holding him back at this point. But he did not do great in AAA. He did way better in AA. He's definitely built right now in the AA aspect. I think he still has a little bit, yeah, a little bit of development left to really do in AAA before we could really say he's big league worthy. But Fiend and Kunkel should really both be ready at this point. They should both be able to come straight into the big leagues and actually perform quite nicely. We are still hoping that Richard Dominguez continues to get the rest of his development as well. If he can do all of that, I think he could still be a 3.5 star starting pitcher at this point as well. He did very well in A plus, struggled in AA for the 11 stars he did there. He will be probably starting in AA next season and trying to work his way up from there at this point. We are hoping that Jaden Stroman also comes back. He unfortunately had a torn UCL, so that's going to hopefully not be a problem for him. We may end up converting him to be a second base shortstop for the rest of his career. I think the pitching side has not developed as well as we were hoping it was going to, but for two-way players, it's kind of what happens, okay? You either get really good batting or really good pitching, and you have to pick one or the other. So Jaden Stroman probably going to be picked up as a starting as a batter versus a pitcher, and that's how we're going to go with him moving forwards. And then, of course, we still have Carlos Cancel. He had a very good season, I believe. Yeah, in the Single A and Single A Plus League. So he's developing actually pretty decently. If we can get some more of that stamina back, I think he will actually get back up to 4 stars. And that would actually be pretty good. So we're hoping that Cancel will be able to bring himself back up to the abilities we're hoping he can do. And then our new people are starting to trickle in. Schoolcraft has also been developing pretty nicely. I think he's still technically a reliever at this point, but he continues to actually impress really well in single A, so we're going to give him a shot. This left-handed two-way player might still be able to impress me and actually make it to the big leagues and perform at a pretty good level. And then, of course, as always, we have all the people we just got. So, of course, Dennis Carl will be starting next season. We'll see how he does. We're still hopeful that he can get a little bit of this movement up. I think we have him in the player development labs right now working on this movement, and we'll see if we can get that around. Otherwise, we still have other people on this list. We're all just trying to keep themselves afloat and be able to continue moving forwards with a bunch of their development and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. I don't think we have anybody in our systems. I mean, yeah, we have Leo Becerra, one of our international amateur free agents we signed. He's still got some decent potential as well. I would still like to see him get some more time. He'll probably still be in the rookie system next season, unfortunately. And then I don't think we have anybody that interesting. Some people that we did get up signed at this point, but nobody of any consequence, unfortunately, in the rest of the rookie system. So that's pretty much our situation with money and arbitration at this point in regards to certain things. The owner did give us a brand new contract. We're expiring this season, so he's given us 2 more years for $1,300,000, so 1.3 mil basically. I'm not entirely sure if that goes against our budget. Otherwise, I would take a pay cut personally, but it has been very nice to be able to be this successful with the Colorado Rockies immediately and be able to look so good. We were updated about the top 100s prospects and the top systems. Larry Kunkel is still the best prospect in baseball. Chris Cannon, who was drafted, I believe, right before him in the 2027 draft. No, sorry, the year following in the 2027 draft. Chris Cannon's the number 1 draft from 2027. He is officially the number 2 overall prospect. He plays for Kansas City. Man, this guy's good too. If you can get any of that developed defense around, this is a quality bat right about here. I'm still interested in some of these other people as well. Lyndon Faundes is an interesting one here for the New York Mets. He was a first-round pick in 2026 for them. He was the 18th overall selection. He's been doing pretty decently. Actually played in the big leagues this year. Wow. Okay, Mets, go for it. He's got some more stuff to be able to develop, but he's actually pretty good at this point. So some really good people on this list. Of course, Russ McLaughlin is here as well. He was originally one of the better people drafted in the 2027 first-year player draft. He played in single A plus last year. He's a very, very good pitcher. I would say he is about as good as Kunkel, in my opinion. And I would love if we could ever get a second person like Kunkel, such as a Russ McLaughlin on our squad. That would be phenomenal. John Marin finally joins the top 10 as well. He is in the Oakland Athletics system at this point. He was the 2nd overall pick in our last draft here in 2028. He is now the number 8 overall prospect, and he is, in my opinion, still one of the best prospects in baseball. I think he will, I think by opening day of next year, I think he's going to be the number 1 overall prospect. I think he's better than Kunkel. You heard me right. I think he's better than Kunkel. Adaptability, intelligence, great running, good base running, good bunting, good outfield defense, can play center, can play right, can play left, hits for contact, is pretty decent in avoiding Ks, hits for gap power, probably can hit 30 homers a season, maybe 40 if he wants to, and can walk. This kid can do everything. This is basically Mike Trout, okay? And I know I made that a comparison already, but this is Mike Trout, okay? It's Mike Trout 2.0. I want him. If there was ever a prospect that I really wanted to get, it would have been John Marin, and we didn't get him. So I'll be upset about that the rest of this entire playthrough, but that's basically my whole entire thing. We got Kunkel. I can't be too unhappy, okay? We have the best pitching prospect in baseball, but I want the best hitting prospect in baseball, too. I want John Marin, okay? If there's ever a situation where I can get John Marin from the Athletics for a decent deal, I will totally be making it. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up here then at this point. Let's go ahead and review how our season went, how people did. So again, Shane Bieber, Sonny Gray are 2 best pitchers if you're looking at it based off of WAR, basically. They were really, really good. Will Vest had a great season as our closer. And this is the reason why we're trying to get Justin Martinez extended. Even though Will Vest had a 3.2 WAR season and had a 2.89 ERA, he pitched 71 innings. He lost us 12 baseball games. He won us 7, but he only blew, I think it was 4 or 5 saves. So the problem is that we couldn't get the game to Will Vest in a winning situation often enough. This means that there was 19 baseball games potentially where we did not have a save situation for Will Vest, and we still brought him in to try to save the game. So we used him too much. Your closer should only be in for basically an inning per appearance, and, he's a little over an inning per appearance, but if it's your closer, you really should be only getting him in for the 3 outs that he needs. That really should be it. The 6 out closers are just so much more harder to manage. They fall apart so much easier, so we're hoping that being able to extend Justin Martinez will help with the bullpen. Otherwise, Carlos Rodriguez had a good season as our number 5 pitcher, I believe. He ended up starting 17 games, did pretty decently for a prospect of ours. So his second-ish full season-ish in the big leagues, technically his first full season here. Not too bad for Carlos Rodriguez. We're happy to have him here at this point. We still have some stuff to work through, like Jose Leclerc having a really rough season. Jackson Cox was the only person who had a really bad season, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll be able to just have some fun at this point. And yeah, we'll see how the rest of the season goes, or sorry, the rest of the offseason goes for our pitching squad as we try to find something to give to our bullpen. And maybe we'll look for another starting pitcher as well to replace the Bieber and Gray combination. Moving on to our batters for the season, we had very good performances from a lot of our players. You're going to see that Rada's missing from this list. Unfortunately, he's injured right now, but he was a 6 WAR character for our batting group. He actually led our entire offense in terms of WAR. Now, I am going to be the first person to also admit that if Riley Green had not gotten injured, he would have led the team in WAR by far. It would have been probably an 8 WAR season for Riley Green. He ended up coming back from his injury, still did very well, finished the regular season with a 341 batting average with 16 home runs and 30 doubles in only 74 games. So we're hopeful that Riley Green, even though he is now officially fragile, he'll be able to do pretty well for us for the rest of his contract. And again, he does technically have a player opt out in 2031 after his 2031 season. So if he is fragile and he wants to opt out because he thinks he's worth more by that point, if it's getting worse, we do have an out there as well. That's kind of the fun part that I did with all of these big signings. You got Bobby Witt. He has an opt out after his 2031 season as well. So both Green and Witt can both opt out in about 3 seasons if they want something bigger. But, if they're not doing well and they're starting to struggle, they might hold on to their contracts and stay with the ball club to be able to get the rest of their contracts fulfilled. So it's all in the hands of the players, basically, to make sure that they can kind of get what they want out of this. Tovar had a good season, even though his bat was kind of just barely above average. He didn't quite have the same steals as well this season, but was still a quality season for Tovar, a 5.1 WAR season for him. And then, of course, Riley Green, 3.7. Drew Romo actually had an interestingly good season, a 3.1 WAR season for him, double digits in the home runs, had 18 stolen bases, looking better and better each season, just a little bit here and there. Bobby Witt Jr. had I'm going to call it a bummer of a season. I did not expect him to go this far down in terms of batting average, but I'm hopeful he can bounce back next season. He went from average 6 WAR season and almost 7 WAR season down to 3. So I don't know if it was just the position change and he's just a little bit unsure of it, or the position itself is just not as valuable. But Bobby Witt Jr. going to have to make it up next year. Ketel Marte did okay for us in the short period of time we had him, but he's going to be gone at the end of the regular season. And that's kind of where the glorious positive notes kind of end. Amador only had a 2.5 WAR season. He's got to bounce back next year. He had a really rough time at the plate. His defense was okay at second base. But there's a part of me that's thinking about switching Amador and Witt Jr. in spring training and letting Witt go play second and Amador go play third again, because that seemed to be a little bit of a bad choice having Witt play third and Amador play second, even though that's kind of their stronger suited positions anyways. So I'll think about it. Charlie Condon unfortunately had a bit of a rough season too. Just didn't quite have the power this year. The batting average dropped down to 268, so he had a 2 WAR season, which is acceptable, but it's not what I was hoping for. We're gonna hopefully try to work on some of his avoid Ks over the course of this offseason, maybe his play discipline as well. See if we can get him just to become a little bit more of a more clutch hitter. Give ourselves that cleanup batter once again that did so well last season. Nathan Lukes, though, is definitely a positive. This was a guy who came into the season expecting to be a bench player slash DH. Um, and with the Riley Green injury, he took over left field pretty much full time for about half of the season. And he ended up posting a 2 WAR replacement season for Riley Green, and he had a really good year doing it. He was technically an average hitter. He had 38 doubles, only 8 home runs. He's not a slugger, though. He was all about getting on base and letting everybody else drive him in, and he did that fluently for us in the entire season. He was a positive left fielder, did a good job, and we were very happy to have him over the course of the regular season. Again, Brenton Doyle, outside of last year, he had a bit of a bounce back. This was definitely back to his usual slumping situation, but he is still getting some stolen bases in there. He's still a quality outfielder, still one of the better center fielders in the league. I'm still hopeful he'll win the Gold Glove for center field, and that would be at least a little bit of a breather, or a breath of fresh air for his quality and his value. But 1.7 WAR, he was our lowest starting 9 player in terms of WAR value. Jacob Amaya, again, Fernandez, Freeman, and Fortes are all expected to actually be dropped. I'm probably going to just flat out loud release Yanquiel Fernandez at this point. I don't think he had a good season. He was doing okay in AAA. He had lots of home runs in the 55 games he played over there, but he came to the big leagues and just didn't even get much playing time. So the AI just didn't even want to use him outside of maybe some minor defensive substitutions in right field and a little bit in left. So unfortunately, I just don't really feel like Yanquiel Fernandez is probably going to stick around. I might do a quick little scouting report on him to see if he's maybe improved a little bit, but at the moment, I think he's on the outside looking in for next season. I just don't see him actually making the major league squad. I might end up waiving and designating him for assignment and seeing if we can slip him back down to AAA and see if he'll be able to just, make it work at this point. But that's kind of it for the offense. That's it for the pitching. Our team, again, absolutely phenomenal. It was a great season for the Colorado Rockies, and I am looking forward. I'm looking forward to Larry Kunkel being potentially our ace pitcher next year. That would be amazing. We are still also awaiting, of course, Chase Dollander to come back from his broken bone in his elbow. He's 7 weeks out from that. Rada is 5 weeks out from his torn abdominal muscle. So we'll get back one of our starting pitchers there. We'll have, of course, for next season, right now, for next season, we have lined up, we have Dollander, Hampton, Giolito, and then, of course, Kunkel and Fiend. That would be our top 5. That would be if everything goes well and Fiend and Kunkel both give us some more good development over the offseason and they look impressive in spring training, we will be moving forward with both of them in the starting rotation and giving ourselves, of course, people like Jackson Cox and I believe it's Hansel Rincon as our like backup spot starters potentially, people who could be able to help us out a little bit. We have some other options as well. We did pick up AJ Smith's Shaver through a waiver claim back on October 5th. He actually will be probably holding on to. I think he stays on the ball club, so he might be actually trying out as a number 5 starting pitcher if we can get that control up just a little bit more. He might actually be an option for us as a starting pitcher as well. So lots of stuff to worry about once we get rid of all of our loose baggage for the contracts. I think we'll be able to maybe make 1 or 2 moves. It just depends on kind of how we want to be able to handle our off season. If there is an international free agent that really, really, really floats my boat, we might think about moving Brenton Doyle. We might think about moving Will Vest just to clear up some space. We might look at the idea of dropping how much we're putting into player development and scouting, because right now they're a combined $50 million for the two of those. I could probably go down to 40 million, maybe even 35, and still be fine on both of those. I don't think we have to do 15 million in the draft. I think we might be able to get away with maybe more like 10 to 12. So there's some ways in which we could have some really good results, even with a very restricted financial situation that we're currently in. But with, of course, Bieber not picking up his contract obligations, we are now in a very good breathing room situation because our owner is expecting us to jump to the 220s for our budget next season. And if we win the World Series again, or at least go to playoffs, I imagine it'll be closer to 230 million, which at that point we're looking at probably more along the lines of maybe 150 maybe for a player payroll at that point, and that would be right in line with what we're supposed to have. If we do it again, then we might be able to afford the almost $200 million contracts that everyone's going to have by the 2031 season, maybe. So we have some time. We have some time to be able to make it work. I think we'll be fine. And I think that we'll have some options to be able to move some people around. And again, that's if Riley Green even, well, no, they'll still be on the team at that point. But I think there's going to be some good situations for us to be able to make some better decisions. Hampton and Rodriguez are going to be on that list for, $11 million combined. They might be kept, they might not be. Jackson Cox, Edgardo Hernandez, Enriquez, Yanquiel Fernandez, Hansel Rincon, Elameo Hernandez. You got like $2 million to each of them. So you've got about another $10 million there. Jacob Amaya's not going to be on the system. So that's about $3 million saved about there. So there are some people who probably will not be on the organization's payroll come 2031, and I think we will be okay. We just can't get sloppy when we've won and we're continuing to have success. You got to keep yourself disciplined, not to go overboard right now. Last thing I'm going to leave you guys on, the last thing, Gabe Kapler is now having a reputation of excellent as a manager. He is not letting us control who the bench coach is or the base coaches or setting the staff role. And he also is now controlling player strategy settings. So he's starting to get a little bit of control freaky. But you know what? For what he's been able to help us do and pull off here, he should be winning Manager of the Year for 2028 now that we have won the World Series for the first time in the Colorado Rockies franchise history. It has been a long time in the making for this, but again, and I'll end you guys on that note one more time. We won it all, and we did it in style. I will see you all in the next video.